Ready?
Yep, this is recording rather.
What's up, everybody? Welcome, and thank you so much for listening to the Beware of the Dog podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Manny Rowland, sitting here with.
Your other host and co-host, Henry Jemineski.
Um, Thank you again for tuning in. This is what our third episode now,
It is our third episode, yeah.
and we got plenty to talk about. There's tons of stuff going on. We've got a couple of people jumping in for their hurt colleagues in the UFC, and quite possibly making the card even better than before.
I think it will. I definitely think it will.
Definitely got a couple fights to talk about that we witnessed last night that were just extremely impressive for a fight night. Man.
No question. Especially that main event, man. You had texted me last night about it, and I was not prepared for what was to come. I've always been a Edson Barbosa fan, but that comeback that he made was pretty incredible.
I got to give it to Youssef though for staying in there as well. I mean, like, look, that first round, that just showed you that Barbosa does belong in the Hall of Fame. After all, he is a true vet, and he withstood the storm.
No question.
But Youssef hanging out in there for all 5 rounds, I'm impressed by that too.
I agree with you 100%. I do think it's unfortunate because I've been a big Edson Barbosa fan for a long time. I didn't realize how long it was until I saw when his first fight was.
It was a whole long time.
It was a very long time, but it does make sense, obviously. His age. But I guess nowadays I'm curious to see really how many guys make it that long.
Well, now that USADA's not going to be in the UFC anymore, I'm sure plenty will make it.
But I also wonder what the lack of USADA brings. Does it mean, old school pride, everybody juiced up, Bob Sapp maybe entering into
Sapp-looking ass dudes, yep.
Maybe even who's the guy from Pride who came over who was all juiced up as well?
All of them.
Yeah, basically. But Overeem, I was thinking about. Yeah.
Overeem.
And I will say this: look, I do like the Overeem of Pride just because he wasn't as stiff as he is in the UFC, but it's going to be interesting to see.
Overeem lost a ton of weight. I think he was training. What is he doing? Isn't he doing triathlon or something?
He is from the last thing I saw. Yeah. But I like the Overeem of like the old Pride. He was super lanky, crazy reach. I don't know if you remember actually when Chuck Liddell was in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
He jumped into a 4-man bracket and he met Overeem. I think he met Overeem in the first or second round. I can't remember which one it was. But either way, he got demolished by Overeem. But it was a non-juiced Overeem, so it was like. What was Chuck? He was a light heavyweight, right?
205.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you there because I think the Overeem of the UFC was probably like 240.
Yeah.
Right? Easily.
I did read something though the other day that Chuck said that he feels like in his prime he could have taken out John Jones if John Jones is prime. I'm like, I don't know about that, Chuck. somebody get their drunk uncle and take him back.
Exactly. I don't know if you've watched any. I don't want to get in too much of a tangent, but I don't know if you've watched too much of Chuck's like recent interviews, dude. He's looking a bit of a mess. He's looking a little Nate and Nick Diaz-esque. With the way he talks, and he's just seemed to take too many shots to the head.
During his time, though, man.
Oh, amazing fights. I mean, look at the Tito Ortiz, either trilogies or at least 2 fights, right?
I think it was a trilogy.
It was a trilogy, yeah. And then you look at his fights against Randy Couture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really awesome time at watching the UFC, and that was kind of like the come up of the UFC. Obviously after Tough happened, that crazy Tough finale.
Yeah.
That was kind of what put him on the mat, but put him on the map. I'm talking about the mats, but put him on the map. But
you can take the guy out of jiu-jitsu, but you can't take the jiu-jitsu out of
the guy. No question. But I think those guys, those are definitely some of the early. You go back early. We talk about Royce Gracie, but the guys that were really took the UFC and put it on their backs.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're talking Hoist Gracie, we're talking VHS though.
No question, no question.
Liddell's and these guys, it's like tough and all that. That's like when it really hit the masses.
No question.
That's
no question.
That was when what were the t-shirts? The Affliction shirts.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's plenty of pictures of me regretting wearing an Affliction shirt.
Between Affliction and Tap Out, I don't know. They were both fighting for the
Tap Out shorts.
Fighting for the tap out, if you will. But let's not. I regress.
Yeah.
Let's get to what we saw last night. Like we said, crazy fight with Essen. I'm hoping. At 37 years old, I don't know, what's to come, but I'm hoping he makes maybe a little bit of. I don't want to use the word comeback because that was the main event in that on that card, But at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of comes from that fight.
That was a great fight. I texted you about the one with I can't remember the guy's name right now. It wasn't Christian Martinez. But the leg kick.
Yes, that put the guy out.
Yeah,
I did. I saw that. I can't. It's driving me nuts. You know what fight that was, Danny? From last night, the undercard fight.
The card from last night. There was, I believe it was.
It's like the
Christian. It's not Christian Martinez.
It was 3 fights before the main event.
Christian Rodriguez? No, you said
it wasn't Rodriguez. Rodriguez won though. And he did so in
I think it was the fight right before that. It was on the main card.
While we wait, for that, like I don't even know that he threw more than like 15 punches.
No, it wasn't. It
was all leg kicks. It looked like he probably tore something in his leg from that.
Well, that's what they were saying. Where he hit him on the knee, there was definitely serious damage going on.
Man, and
you're talking about Terrence McKinney?
No.
That was the 22nd.
Spanish dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, that he I'm trying to think what I'm like blanking because I'm thinking about his name at the same time that I'm trying to speak about the fight. But it was just like, oh yeah, they said there's only 14 victories by leg TKO in the UFC, and he's got 2 now.
Really?
Yeah, multiple TKOs by leg.
Yeah, leg kick. Yeah. Leg damage. I would imagine that Dos Anjos probably has.
I think they said Barbosa had one.
Barbosa has one too. I believe that, man.
Barbosa's kicks.
Are ridiculous. That spinning back kick was incredible, man. What was that, the third round, I think? That was kind of the comeback round for him, I think, when he dropped Youssef and we talked about him jumping on the. I think he wanted the sub finish, but with his striking, he should have finished with the.
He could have taken him out there.
He should have. Well, I'm not in the match. He was tired. You could see 100%. he was physically, exhausted from.
First round was crazy.
It was crazy, man. He was still recovering, I think, in that round. But while we wait for that, let's talk a little bit about what's to come for next week.
Man, I mean,
are you excited? More excited, or equally as excited for next week based on what's happened?
I think I'm a little more excited. I guess with Hamza and Paulo, that was cool. I'm more excited for the Kamaru in that one.
100%.
I love that matchup for both of them for multiple reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to Volk jumping in, I'm a Volk fan.
Yes.
I'm trying to look at this from a non-biased point of view, and from that point of view, I think that it will be a great match.
Yep.
The Volk fan in me is like, let's go.
No question.
Spartans, what are we?
Yes, and I think Volk is the one, there's probably a handful of guys out there that, whether they're called, a week before or a month before or 6 months, when the fight is scheduled, they're always game.
Well, and that in and of itself, I think, is why I like him even more, because he's like, as good as he is, he could technically make the calls. Like, for him to jump in on a last minute like that, like not a lot of champs would do that.
No,
some champs are like so protective of their title, and he's like, nah, dude, let's go.
Yes, 100%.
I love that.
I love it about it too. I love it about him too. And I think that being in there with him, with Makhachev recently, is going to make it even better for him.
Yeah, I think he's well. My question is, what kind of fight did Makhachev prepare for?
100%.
Right, because like he's had whatever, like probably 6 weeks of a camp, 4 weeks of a camp before Volk jumped in. So like, what was his preparation like? Who was he getting ready for? Like we know who he was getting ready for, but like, I've heard him talk about his fight with Oliveira leading up to it, saying that he was going to knock him out. That was his goal. So
Yes.
is he going in there with crisp hands and not a lot of grappling training?
I can't imagine after their first fight that he wouldn't have been training grappling. That being said, I think based on the fight between Makhachev and Volk, the first fight, I think that there's going to be a lot. I think Volk wants to stand and scrap, because although he defended the grappling very well, he doesn't want to go to the ground and grapple with Makhachev.
No, but have you heard what Craig Jones
said? I have heard what Craig Jones said.
Craig Jones is guaranteeing a submission victory.
Now that's a little ballsy, because if Craig was going in there with him and it was a grappling match, I think Craig gets the tap. There's no question. But I think to expect that from a guy like Volk, not to say that he's not grappling. I'm sure they're training plenty of grappling. But I just can't see a on the ground grappling, MMA grappling match going in Volk's favor.
He even called for Craig Jones called for a buggy choke if it winds up in side control, and I was like, wait, come on, man, Volk is so small. But then you remember, like, Volk's got a longer reach.
He does have a longer reach.
So that I mean, look, is it possible? Anything's possible.
Yes.
But I'm just like, based on the dynamics of his body composition, it's a probability.
That, and if you also look at the way stylistically that a Khabib or a Makhachev grapple in MMA, they start from the guard, they stuff and trap the legs, and they climb up. So I don't see him go into side control and then see him go to the mount. I see him coming from the legs, through. So, but hey, we've seen crazier things happen in the UFC. So.
If it happened, it'd probably be one of the earlier, if not first, buggy choke.
Oh, it's definitely the first buggy choke in UFC. Okay. I would imagine, right? I don't ever remember another buggy choke.
I'm thinking, like, in terms of MMA, I'm sure there's been a couple buggy chokes in like some other organizations.
You think so?
I feel like I've seen, like, in my mind right now, I'm seeing like some, like, I guess like offshoot brand that's not as well known.
Yeah, that's possible.
Like I'm seeing it,
I just think it's a weird place in MMA for a submission. Because if you're getting to side control in MMA, you're probably doing some type of pounding.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Elbow in their face,
yes, elbow in, punching them in the face. So I would imagine that you're not holding the guy in position. But you could be right. I think that's a good question. I'd like to see if that's out there. It may be out there. But I don't see. I would be very surprised if he buggy chokes him. I would see, if anything else, Volk defending takedowns. And then banging with them there, and they got an incredible, they got a credible coaching staff there. Everybody talks about Craig because he's the more popular kind of out there guy, but his striking, man, is pretty impressive.
He's clean, man.
Yes, very, very clean. Doesn't use many kicks, but really sets up the boxing from different places and the dirty boxing. But I see it going Volk's way. I don't know, what's your pick for this one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I want to make sure I'm not being biased in it, but I do think that Volk has everything. He's got the recipe. I think he wins. And I mean, some people would say, "Oh, a Makhachev hater." I think Makhachev is a phenomenal fighter.
Me too.
I'm not a Makhachev hater.
Either am I.
I really like him as a fighter. Even though he talks crap about jiu-jitsu, I still think, I mean, his grappling is incredible.
Awesome. Awesome.
So,
no question.
I think he has what it takes to win.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that in terms of durability, like, we saw a look of panic on his face in that last fight.
We did. We saw a little kink in his armor in the last fight.
And I feel like Volk is a kind of like savage that would see that and just salivate over it,
There's no question. I think definitely, and I'm sure Volk although I've never seen him actually pissed off. He seems to be like one of the nicest guys in MMA, right? But I'm sure he's pissed about that first fight and the way it went. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not saying that he outright won the fight, but there's definitely no question that if they would have picked him to win the decision, that I wouldn't have been surprised that he did.
As many Makachev haters as are out there, there would have been plenty of Volk haters. You know what I mean? It would have been the same, just flipped over. Right?
No question. You
know, so I think that this fight will be a little clearer for everybody. You know,
yes,
it will add some clarity.
There's no question. There's no question. I'd be surprised if it didn't. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. And for both sides, you know, I think Makhachev's no dummy. You know, I mean, he knows what he's doing. And Khabib's still coaching, right? I think.
No, I think Khabib said he's not.
Oh, he's not coaching anymore.
He might show up for Makhachev, but I know he said no more coaching.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
He retired from all things.
Yeah, that's tough. So. But look, I mean, Makhachev, it's not going to make him any worse. Yeah. You know, I'm sure he's picked up a lot over the years from Khabib and his father. But it's going to be interesting. I'm very excited.
I do hope to see a Makhachev Oliveira fight, whether it's for a title or
you
not.
You and me both.
Because that's another one that, I mean, the first one for me was a bit of a letdown. I would have liked to see that one go a little further.
Me and you both, but hey, man, that's the way MMA is, right? It's like one shot, one takedown, one position, one bad decision in some cases.
Yeah.
You know, could lead to a bad fight for either fighter.
Yeah.
But talk about bad fight for either fighter. You know, I think it's this fight for Usman is a bad fight.
Dude, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I just after the talk about his knees, you know, leading up to the last fight, you know, and the pain that he was feeling leading up to that, and just kind of seeing what, you know, the lack of real grinding and grappling that he did with Leon. I don't see him getting out of the first round with Khamzat.
Leon taking down Kamaru is a clear sign to me that Khamzat has what it takes to ragdoll him a little bit.
No question.
In terms of grappling. Right?
No question.
Now, that being said, he's got to get in. Right?
You're right. I agree.
You know, doesn't change the fact that Kamaru still has that Masvidal knockout type of punch when you come in the wrong way. You know,
no question.
So if Khamzat is reckless, I see the potential of that happening. Now they say Khamzat is one of the hardest working guys. So
no question.
To be reckless, I don't know.
Yeah,
but the way he storms out the gate sometimes, you know.
Yeah. No.
And when you compare what Kamaru and Gilbert, fight, and then you look at Gilbert and Khamzat, I'm like, man, I don't know how this plays out. Like, I do believe Khamzat wins, but then I think to myself, I'm like, I think Kamaru still has something in him to create some heavy damage on.
And I hope you're right. You know, I'm not betting that way. But maybe I put $5 on a Kamaru knockout, you know, because that's the only way I see him winning. I don't see him grappling and defeating him on the ground.
Not grappling.
You know, I don't see it happening at all. But you know, if Kamaru wins, it is a strike. And look, you know, part of me wants to kind of see that too. You know, I've always been a Kamaru fan. I think people have kind of thrown him to the curb after the two Leon fights.
People do that real fast.
They do, man. Nowadays, they really do. You know, because they're doing it to Adesanya a little bit too. After the Strickland fight, I think that, you know, I hate to think that there's so many. I don't want to use the word casual fans, but it almost seems like there's a lot of casual fans out there nowadays that are jumping on one wagon to the other. Yeah. And really disrespecting some of these fighters. You know, they did it, like I said, they did it to Adesanya recently. They're doing it to Usman. But you know who they never do it to? They never do it to the Diaz brothers.
Yeah, well, you know, gotta give them they give them middle fingers, man.
They do.
And as you know, Nate Diaz will just freaking chump anybody that looks at him the wrong way, man.
No question.
I love that one clip of Diaz walking out the arena, and he just chumps that one guy, and the guy spills his soda.
And the guy acts like he's gonna go in there and fight him or something.
Yeah. I have no idea what that was about, but that is like the pivotal moment. I mean, not pivotal. That's a moment for me that reminds me of like my childhood in a way. Because like I grew up in a neighborhood where you better not flinch.
100%.
Flinch, you're a walking target. That guy, walking target.
No question. Yeah, whatever he did after that, it was completely destroyed. Yes, it was completely irrelevant.
He jumped, bro. He flinched.
He definitely did. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man. I'm excited. Either way, I'm excited for both fights.
Now, question for you: what do you think? I was wondering about this. They said that the winner of Hamzat versus Kamaru goes against Strickland next. Do you feel like the UFC or Dana White or whoever just does not like Dricus du Plessis? Because technically, he's in line for next.
He is. He's
not taking that fight against Adesanya due to whatever he said it was, whether it was injury, whatever. I think that set him back, but it does seem a little bit like he's got the curse on him.
I don't even think it's the curse. I think that's the way Dana is with. He rewards fighters who jump up, step up to the plate.
Okay.
And he's always done that, in my opinion. And he's punishes fighters for not stepping up.
Mm-hmm. But this is a big punishment to be the number one, and you know what I mean, like the number one contender.
It is, but which fight, as a fan, which fight would you prefer to see? Say whoever wins this fight, and then fight Strickland. Would you rather see du Plessis fight Strickland first, or would you rather see the winner of this fight?
No, I want to see du Plessis and Adesanya. Is what I want.
I want to see that fight too. That's the fight I want to see too, and that's the fight I'm hoping that they force down du Plessis' throat.
Yeah.
Because he, like you said, he didn't step up. He's being punished for it. So now you punish him with the fight that he wouldn't step up to take. And for him not to step up now, as far as I'm concerned, then you have no more room to be in the UFC. Because you're in the UFC to fight. You're in the UFC to take the biggest fights that's given to you.
Yeah.
And the guys that step up are the guys that get the big fights, win or lose, and that's the way it should be. Period. But
the rest of that card too looks great, man. They got Ankalaev, I think, fighting. You got Said Nurmagomedov.
Yep.
There's a couple guys.
Who's Nurmagomedov fighting? Man, I saw this.
Ewan Europe.
What was the other fight that I saw?
Say that 5 times fast.
You
ever seen that clip where Joe Rogan is he's congratulating one of the victors, and he's like, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it."
At least he keeps it real, right? At least he keeps it real.
We watch that with my wife every now and again. She'll just be like, "Wait, put that clip back
on." Oh man, Joe definitely has made many memories for UFC fans.
I love the ones where he's like, out over the way.
But that goes to show you, man, a guy like that, over the years, I haven't always been happy with some of the announcers, especially those that aren't as informed as they should be, But he's the guy that always, kind of, if sometimes he makes the guys that aren't informed look bad too,
Oh, I think it's funny whenever some of the announcers will be like, he's got him in some kind of weird lock position.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like, let's educate yourself a little bit, buddy. You got all this time leading up to these fights. You know the fighters that are coming up. Let's educate yourself a little bit,
He's choking him with some kind of thing with his legs here.
Yeah.
Triangle. Apparently no jiu-jitsu in that.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you what,